Hi, and welcome to another LinkedIn Live. I am so glad to see you all. So today's question is a really great one. Actually, there are two questions here. What is intellectual property and how can I use it? So if you haven't joined me before, you may not know that this is something I do every Tuesday at 12 noon UK time. I think it's 6 a.m. in Little Rock, America, if I remember correctly. I have a friend who lives there, so I think it's 6 a.m. over there. It's definitely 1 p.m. in Central Europe. So let's dive into this. What intellectual property? Let me put my teeth back in again and take a sip of water, maybe. Sometimes my brain works a little bit faster than my tongue does. I do apologize for that. So, what is intellectual property and how can I use it? So, I have here on my phone the same bit from that I read up. I think it was read the other day. I think it was on Tuesday that I read about this. But let's go back, and then I've got another piece from my book. This one. So, intellectual property is a category of property that includes intangible creations of the human intellect. There are many types of intellectual property. Some countries recognize more than others. The best known types are copyrights, patents, trademarks, and trade secrets, and also design. The modern concept of intellectual property developed in England in the 17th and 18th centuries. The term intellectual property began to be used in the 19th century, though it was not until the late 20th century that intellectual property became commonplace in the majority of the world's legal systems. So to move on, I've got a bit in my book that I'm going to read to you. Do say hello when you join so that I know that you are here with me. I always appreciate that because then I know that if somebody has any questions, then they can type them in, and that makes it more interesting for people to watch. So another way of looking at intellectual property, and a phrase I tend to use when describing it, is intellectual capital. Capital is something that people can leverage to increase their income by selling their products or services. Therefore, intellectual capital is, in my honest opinion, a more appropriate description than intellectual property. Also, some people don't like the word intellectual property. They prefer art creations. And to be fair, it doesn't really matter what phrase you use, because it's always something that we are inspired to create. I'm inspired to create these LinkedIn Lives. And I'm getting some really great questions in, as you can tell, the one today. So let's continue. A brilliant example of intellectual capital is this book that I'm now reading. Another one is the film you or your children watched last night, either at the cinema or on TV or on a mobile device. It can also be the work of art hanging on your walls, in your home or office space. I have got some art behind. You can't really see that, but there's actually a piece of my paternal grandfather's art behind me. It's a white rose. It's a little bit obscured by my awards there. By protecting your intellectual capital, it becomes easier to take legal action against anyone who infringes upon it. More about this topic later on in the book, not to mention the fact that by registering it, it can gain far more value. And that is one of the reasons we have so many trademarks. This legal area is not one that is going to diminish, because with the advent of the metaverse, people are already registering trademarks for the metaverse. So it's not going to shrink at any time soon. And whenever you create something, you can then take your trademark, this is mine, and stick it onto things. I've got my trademark in my book, right? So that's a really, really good reason to have a trademark. It's so that you can stick it onto things, and if people are trying to make something that is confusingly similar, the way it happened with the case of Marks and Spencer and Aldi, where Marks and Spencer has a chocolate cake, and it's called pop my teeth back in again. Take some more water. Colin the caterpillar, and Aldi's is Cuthbert the caterpillar. And that is a case of Aldi having created something that is confusingly similar to Marks and Spencer's prior product. And the reason people do that is often to ride on the tailcoats and the success of somebody who's already successful. So you may be able to understand why they do it. It's still unpleasant when it happens to you. So that's another reason why I always suggest that it's a good idea to register your trademark. Yeah, and I also say, in other words, the day you sell your business, it may be worth far more, depending on whether you are able to build up the reputation and goodwill. And that's also covered more in a later chapter in the book. I just wanted to give these two definitions. Let me see if there's something I have forgotten in the Wikipedia one. It also says that the main purpose of intellectual property law is to encourage the creation of a wide variety of intellectual goods, and that is true. To achieve this, the law gives people and businesses property rights to the information and the intellectual goods they create, usually for a limited period of time. The only exception is actually trademarks, because you've got patents that last 20 years. The copyright is, in most European countries, your lifetime plus 70 years. There are countries that have 99 to 100 years of protection. So it's about realizing where in the world you are, so that you know what the protection is. And then once you pass away, as I said, the protection length varies. There are some countries that we don't know that about, but it's always a good idea to be aware of these things, so that you know what happens when you're no longer here. And as I say, all of the intellectual property go hand in hand. So that means that the more intellectual property you've got, the stronger shield of protection you've got. Hence the coat of arms. I'm just reading to see what else. Yeah, this gives economic incentive for their creation, because it allows people to benefit from the information and intellectual property. Yeah. Any questions, do type them in, and I shall answer them to the best of my ability. And please make it something that is to do with today's topic. That's always the best idea. If there are no questions, then we will wrap it up. Any questions? Type, 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 type. It doesn't matter to me if there are any questions or not, because I know that what I create and what I share here has massive value to the people that are watching it. So it's just more fun when there's interaction, but it doesn't pop my teeth back in again, take another sip of water. It doesn't really matter to me, because I know that that it has massive value, and that if it doesn't get watched live, it can be seen on my YouTube channel. So yeah, that's always very interesting. Let me see if there are any comments. No, it doesn't look like there are any comments. All right. Nope, no comments. No comments. No private chat. Nope, nothing. All right. Okay, well, we can wrap it up then. It's been 10 minutes of me talking about intellectual property and how you can use it. So I actually could go into a little bit more about how you can use it. So say, for instance, you are somebody who has created a premium system or program that you are taking clients through. When you've got a registered trademark, people can't swipe your content as easily without you being able to do something against it. So some of the people who are coaches or trainers or public speakers, they often create content and some form of system or process that they're taking other people through, either to become professional speakers or to teach a subject that they really, really care deeply about, or something else. And some of these people sometimes experience that when people gain access to their courses, that the content gets swiped, and if the access is to the content like right away, all of the content, then they can just swipe the content and ask for their money back. So I know that I'm not really talking about that side of things, but I would always suggest that you don't allow people access to everything in one fell swoop, because it's far easier for you, when you retain information, to say, I'm sorry, that I have this money back, what's it called, policy, and you cannot have your money back. I'm really sorry about that. And then also, because you've held some of the information back, well, then it means that they have to stay until all of that is released, and then the money back guarantee should be cut off before that. It's just a bit of information here I'm sharing with you. And when you've got a trademark that is registered, it is actually easier to say, guess what, this is actually my creation, so you need to stop copying my work. And when you copy anybody's work, it's plagiarism, and plagiarism isn't really the way forward, because it always gets uncovered, it always gets found out, and it is extremely hard to clear yourself of a plagiarism charge. So do be careful about that. Okay, there are still no questions, so I think I'm going to wrap it up today. It has been a joyful 13.5 minutes, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same channel, same two destinations, either YouTube or LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Over and out.